I am so happy to welcome Megan Mitchell back, one of the original contributors to Lift the Visor, brave enough to share your story as one of the first who wasn't me to share your story, and who's been an incredible ambassador for mental health, supporter of Lift the Visor, racer at Flamborough Speedway, and part of a four-car team with your family, which is an incredible thing, and comes with many different facets in terms of what you experience at the track.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here.
no problem. I'm glad we get to do this.
Yeah, me too. I think where I'd like to start is just to revisit that original post that you shared, which people can find on the Lift the Visor website in the blog, um, and just walk me through the first sort of part of your journey in terms of being like 13 and going to the doctor and having, faking your way through it, which a lot of people experience. There's some denial, there's some I don't want to be labeled, there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. And it's, you know, as many people talk about in mental health, it's very easy for us to fake it through, whether it's in a social setting, at a party or the racetrack or with our family. And so I just want to go back to that original part of your story and have you share a little bit about that again.
Yeah. It, oh my gosh, that feels like so long ago. I don't fully remember everything I wrote, but as for like the very start, yeah, I faked my entire way through. I denied everything to the point where they actually tried to give my mom medication instead of me because
Really?
they kind of thought that it was my mom that was struggling. It wasn't me because I faked everything and I lied about everything to the doctor. But it finally got to a point where I realized like I do need to do something. I need to hold myself accountable and I need help. So I ended up going back and making another doctor's appointment. Like this was probably a couple years down the road. And that started the whole, I guess, journey with antidepressants. And at that point, it was depression. It was the depression that I really dealt with. Whereas now it's not that at all, surprisingly. But
Yeah,
that's
it's a
where
journey, isn't it?
that, yeah, it's kind of like a evolving thing too. Like I didn't think that my mental health would go beyond or outside of depression. Like at that point, that's all I knew of mental health was depression. I knew nothing else. So when I started learning about anxiety, like years down the road, it was a whole nother ball game. And then just this past year, learning about, I thought it was OCD and it actually turned out to be ADHD. That was another whole nother, I don't even want to say another ball game. It was a whole nother sport. Like it was
Mm,
totally different.
yeah,
So it's like,
yeah. I want to get
yeah,
into that too, and how those things feel different to you in terms of like what emotions it brings up almost inside of you, and how you feel about the journey. But I think there was something back. A lot of us have a trauma of some sort that kind of leads to the discovery of our challenges, right? So something traumatic happens, and we're experiencing extreme emotions, and then we realize that, like, ooh, this probably isn't something I can manage on my own. And I think there was someone close to you who passed away, and that sort of sounded like it was the watershed moment for you to go back to the doctor and say, like, I need some help
yeah,
navigating this. When you first thought of that, because I had a similar experience where, after a lot of challenges, the light bulb kind of went off in my head that, like, I'm not gonna there's no way I'm getting out of this on my own, so I need to go and talk to someone. What How did that feel? Tell me about that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of people who deny or diminish the traumatic things that have happened to them and how they can impact you, even if it's something minor, or you don't necessarily feel it consciously, but subconsciously there can be things going on that impact you. So just tell me a little bit about how that influenced your decision to go.
Yeah. So I kind of dealt with, I think when I was younger, it wasn't really depression, it was an anxiety, but I didn't recognize it as anxiety, and neither did my family or my doctor at that point when because I was really young at that point. And it wasn't until I was in grade 9 when my cousin, who was in grade 6, I think he was in grade 6, he was 3 years younger than me. He passed away, and he was like a brother to me. We were raised really close, so that had a huge effect on me. That's when the depression kind of came into the picture. And honestly think it wasn't until the depression came in that it like, because I never, like, I had a really good upbringing. Like, I will say that, like, I had a really good childhood. There was nothing traumatic throughout my childhood, really. So I felt like I didn't have a reason
Mm,
to be on medication. I'm like, nothing's happened to me. Like, I haven't had super traumatic things happen to me, so I don't have a reason. So once that happened and I really spiraled, like it got really bad, that's when I almost used it as a reason
mm.
to kind of go back and decide that, all right, I do need help, because it was scary the way I was feeling. So it's like, yeah, it was almost like I not needed a reason, but I almost needed a reason to make myself go back, like,
Yeah,
and
sort
look
of
into it. So,
like a bigger watershed moment, because my experience with it was it built up over time, and I'm the same as you. I had a pretty pleasant childhood. I mean, my parents weren't angels. They fought with each other, and pretty standard stuff
yeah,
that most of us went through. But there was
yeah,
no singular major thing that I could put my finger on that I was like, that's what made me feel this way. And so my struggle was trying to work through all of that and figure out what the heck combined to put me in this place that I now feel this way, where I'm depressed all the time. And mine started with anxiety about certain things that I couldn't control, and so on and so forth.
hmm,
And I find it really interesting that that you had something happen after you had sort of experienced some of the symptoms, so years apart, but that thing told you that it was time to go and try and figure this out, because this just didn't feel good anymore. Like, I can't manage this on my own, right? Kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
talk a little bit of, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it was almost, I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, because
Mm,
losing my cousin was hands down one of the worst things that's happened in my life. But just the things that followed in my life, like trauma wise, after that, it was like, okay, it's a good thing that I've taken the step already to try to get this under control, which it was not under control at that point. But it was like a few years down the road, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and we had no idea how that was going to go. So it's like that was another, like, it it still severely impacted me. And right up until 2022, when my dad was on life support, it again, like, my mental health was not fixed. I don't know if it will ever be fixed. I don't know if you can ever call it that, but like, it was just a good thing that it was in process, I guess, at that point, like, that I made that decision before, because it's like things just kind of happened. And yeah.
I think it's a good example of why we need to have these conversations. So, people, we've all seen it happen. it's happened to you with your cousin passing, where we go through life with these ideas about how we show up in different scenarios. And then when something really traumatic happens, we don't necessarily have an operating system that's ready for that. And so just talking about the process of how do we manage emotions, and maybe being able to pick up on something earlier in life so that you can have the balance that you need, whether it's with your beliefs and values, or through medication to help you manage something like OCD or ADHD, even something as extreme as bipolar. So to be able to have that early awareness of, I think that trauma is going to come for all of us at some point. Something very challenging is
Mhm.
coming, and so
Yeah.
understanding that, we can preemptively prepare ourselves in ways based on things we're experiencing now to be better suited for that. And I think that's the journey of mental health, is that it's never perfect, but we're always thinking about how am I improving this scenario for myself. Whereas I feel like, for the first 35 years of my life, I never even considered that. I was just taking things as
Mhm.
they came at me, and some threw me way off the rails, and others were fine. And my goal of my mental health journey has been like balance, or not. I always use the example of riding a roller coaster, and it used to be like these huge peaks and valleys, and now it's more like, the kids ride on the the little
Yeah.
mountain that bangs your knees. Um,
Yeah.
and so thinking about where you started, um, and going on medication for depression, and then finding out about anxiety and going on medication for anxiety, and balancing those two things. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges that came with that? Because I think there's a lot of people who hope that the medication just solves it right away. And you and I have talked a lot about the various types of medication that exist, and the dosages, and side effects, and all the things that come with it. And it was the same for me with talk therapy. You can get a
Mm.
good therapist, or one that you can't connect with, and sometimes that can take months or years to find the right recipe for who you can share your darkest, deepest stuff with, and actually make progress. So talk a little bit about
Mhm.
the journey of medication.
It was definitely a process. I started on they gave me Cipralex first. And even that, it was like they're just tiny little pills, and I think I started on half of one, and it wasn't really doing anything, so they started giving me a full one. So I was on that for a little while, and I don't really remember exactly what that was like, being on just that one, because it wasn't long after that they said that they felt like it needed to be mixed with something else. So they mixed it with Wellbutrin, and that too was a whole game of changing doses, taking a little more Wellbutrin, dropping the Cipralex again, going back up with the Cipralex, dropping the Wellbutrin, like just trying to find that sweet spot. And I can't say that I ever really did find a sweet spot with the two. I think I was kind of in denial, and I was just tired of it, tired of trying things. And I kind of just started lying again to the doctor and saying, "Yeah, no, it's fine. Like it's working fine. I'm all right." And it wasn't. I mean, I wasn't steady taking them anyways. I think I took them for a few years daily before I started falling off. And it's like I might take one here, might take one there, but those ones are ones that you have to take repeatedly for them to work. So it really wasn't doing anything for me. But I can remember starting the Cipralex again a couple years down the road. I think this was 2023. I started taking them again because my dad saw the way I was struggling with my mental health when getting back into racing, and he's like, I know what you can do, but I think your mental health needs to be kind of more under control for you to do that. So like I really think you need to be on these meds again. So it's like he made sure that like every day, every single day, he made sure that I took my meds, and it was helping, but I kind of realized that it was almost making me a zombie. I
Mm,
didn't like the way it was making me feel anymore. So I I forget what had happened if I stopped taking the Wellbutrin first and I was only taking the Cipralex, or if it was the fact that I might have run out of one or the other and only took the one and realized that it totally changed. So I ultimately came to the realization on my own that it was the Cipralex that was making me feel like a zombie. Like I couldn't process emotions, and it was like it was really hard to live that way. So I stopped taking that and I started taking just the Wellbutrin, and things changed for the better for me. I wouldn't say it was great because I still was struggling really bad, but it was enough of a difference for me to notice. But yeah, it wasn't, it's like that was 2023, and it took until December of 2025 to really find out more. And that led into the whole ADHD thing. And that's when things totally changed, like
mm,
for the better at that point.
yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was just an ever changing. Yeah.
So I think there's a couple. We're going to get to that part because I think that in previous conversations you and I have had, like that was a very important moment in time for you to put a
Mm-hmm.
name to a thing that you felt all along, and without it you kind of felt lost. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? Why do I feel all this stuff? Why do I act this way? All of these things, right? So
Yeah.
but there's two things that stood out to me um in what you said. So the symptoms you were experiencing from the medication, I'm curious about what kind of support did you have, or conversations could you have with your doctor about this particular thing you were experiencing? Was it just like, hey, that's part of the deal if you need to be balanced out? Was there suggestion of trying different medication? What was that like? Or was it a lot of frustration on your part? Because I know that early on in my journey, even though completely different in terms of how I was going about it, there was a lot of frustration just about like, why do I have to keep doing this? Why is this, why is this happening to me? And all of these thoughts of, and being frustrated with it going on and on forever and ever. And um, in the beginning, there's just a lot of work, whether it's figuring out medication, whether it's talk therapy, whether it's, sitting with yourself and contemplating life and what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. There's just a lot of work that goes into that in the beginning. So tell me about
Mhm.
experiencing those symptoms and how you worked through that. If you were talking to your doctor, if you were just, I know you said you were on and off the meds because you kind of were like, I don't want to be a person who's to
Yeah.
navigate that.
I It was kind of something that I did on my own. Like I don't want to talk I don't know if it was just because at that point
Mhm.
mental health, it's not that it wasn't taken seriously, but like it was looked at as just a baseline of like anxiety or depression. And that's what he told me was a general anxiety and depression. So it's like all of my symptoms and stuff, I kind of had to pay attention to on my own. I mean, I would go in for checkups every once in a while just so he could reevaluate and see if he thinks that I still need them. And honestly, that conversation with my doctor was always him asking how is things going? How is the depression and stuff? And I would tell him how it is and tell him how I'm struggling. And I know the response I got a couple times was, well, I'm sure glad I'm not you. here's your
Mm,
prescription. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's not really
hmm.
helpful. So it was a lot that I had to look into. And I mean, at one point, I forget what year it was, it might have been 2021. I decided I was going to try to upgrade my education a bit and go to school for my children's mental health course. I never completed, but I did a few courses, and the things that I was learning in those courses kind of helped me to recognize things in myself and kind of start pushing for a change in my medication or the way I was doing things. And it's like that's when I kind of became vocal and was really pushing for just different, like seeking different help and changes with my medication to see what's actually going to help. Like I know both of the meds I was on was more of a they're they're both antidepressants, but I had looked into it and found out that the Wellbutrin was kind of more gauged for anxiety. So it's like I was kind of paying attention in, I mean, 2021 and 2022. It was the depression was still really bad. It was about the end of 2023, beginning of 2024 that I realized that it wasn't really there. It was the anxiety that I was struggling with. And I think that's what made me kind of on my own. I'm not going to lie, I never even talked to my doctor about it. I'm still prescribed Cipralex. I just don't get it refilled. I kind of made that conscious decision to try going to just the Wellbutrin and seeing if that helped with the anxiety. And it kind of did. So it's like, I don't condone to like messing with your medications without talking to a doctor, but I just kind of cut one out myself. And after looking into things, and it kind of played out, like it
I
worked
think
out
there's a
for me.
I think there's a really important thing here about advocating for yourself, which is a very challenging thing to do because we've all been told that the doctors are the authority on things. And I had a similar experience when I went to the doctor. Um, Mine was I walked in, told him what was going on. He said, clearly, you're in a state of deep distress, like you need something to help you climb out of this. And medication was his suggestion. And I said, absolutely not. I feel that the path for me is that I need to talk to somebody. And he
Mm,
said, it's, the waiting list is 8 months and I can't give you a referral for that. And I said, really? So, what we need to be aware of on this journey, and this is incredibly helpful for people who are maybe just at the beginning stage of figuring it out, is that we have to take ownership over it. As much as it feels like those people should be there to help us, I think they're only there to help us as much as we are willing to stand there and say, "This is the kind of help I need." Um, I'm going to be in control of this journey, not you're going to tell me what to do. You might need a doctor to get you started moving like you did, right?
mm,
So here's some stuff. Let's try it, see what happens. But ultimately, I think that as humans, especially in today's world, we kind of want things quickly or easily. And that's just not what this journey is for most people that experience mental health. It's a very long run. And the more that we can advocate for ourselves or do that thing where you realize your symptoms and you're just not happy about it, so you're going to go and do some research or try and find another doctor or do things that give you the opportunity to find a better way forward. And I get that's really super frustrating sometimes. You've experienced it, I've experienced it. Um, but I think that's the number one thing I would say to people. So it's not knocking doctors, it's just the reality of the system that we're in. There's not a ton of
yeah.
knowledge in general practitioners. There is a directive in terms of like, where do we send them or what do we do if somebody's thinking about self harm? What do we do? Um, and so there's things that happen in those instances that maybe aren't perfect for everyone. So I think that's the core of what you're saying there. Um,
Hmm.
and I would agree with you. Um, Experimenting can be very, very dangerous, especially if it's early on
Yeah.
in your journey. You were a long ways along and knew what those two medications kind of did for you. Um, and felt probably that there wasn't going to be an extreme anything that happened. It just might be a bit of like, I'm going to feel more of this or more of that. And if I get to a point, you're also far enough along that if you get to a point, you're probably like, okay, I'm going to go back on this, or I'm going to go see my doctor. And I think that's the really important thing for people to remember. As much as you're going to advocate for yourself, um, you have to make sure that you're not putting yourself in danger as well by doing things that you aren't sure are going to work, because it can be that sudden for something to really not go well. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I kind of was in that kind of a predicament too, actually, this year, when, like, after I started the ADHD meds, the specialist that I was talking to wanted to increase my Wellbutrin dose. So she wanted to raise it up to the max dose that you could be on. Because I think it's like 300 milligrams, and the max is like 450. So she prescribed me that. And that's where the important part too, in knowing your own body and recognizing these things and paying attention to it and being honest about it, is really important, because I did move up to the maximum dosage, and everybody in my household noticed it. I noticed it. I became angry, like extremely angry, extremely confrontational. It, it was really bad. Like, I was arguing with everybody in my household over nothing. Like, I was so angry. And that was like the first day. And the second day, I kind of started getting super shaky and trembly. It
Mm.
wasn't until the third day when I went to work and I was on it and I'm trying to talk and I'm stuttering really bad and my lips are twitching, and I'm like, this is not right. Like, I went to the office and I told my supervisor, like, I'm actually really scared right now. Like, I really want to go home. I don't know what's going on, but I think it's my medication. Like, I feel really angry. I feel like I'm going to blow up. And physically, like, I don't know why I'm stuttering and trembling like this. And it bothered me because the specialist had asked me before she upped it if I've ever had a seizure before. And I said no.
Mm.
And she said, okay, because if you're prone to seizures, being on the max dosage of this could potentially trigger that. So when I started like twitching and everything like that, I was really scared that that was happening. So I really had to listen to myself at that point, and I kind of stopped taking that dosage. I put myself back down to my other dosage. And she was doing regular, like once a month calls with me to see how it was going, to see if I needed to change anything. And I straight up told her, like, look, I was only on it for 3 days because she wanted me to take it for a week before we had another conversation. And I just told her, like, I took it for 3 days. This is what's happened. And I stopped taking it. And she told me, like, I'm really glad that you stopped taking it, because it does sound like you were having a really bad effect because of it. And like, I'm just glad that you listened and paid attention to what was happening. So it really is important to really pay attention and kind of track your behavior and even physical things that are happening, and that will really help with figuring out where you need to be and what you need to be on.
Yeah, it's so important to remember that like not one size fits all with this stuff. It is, some people could probably do that 450 milligram dose and be okay. And others,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a no-go entirely with that medication because of the way it reacts with their body. And I think that's where like the self-advocacy and the awareness part comes in, is be your own, best advocate or ambassador in your journey, because you are going to find things that don't work for you that maybe the practitioner has suggested will do exactly what you need it to do. Um, so let's talk about where you're at now, because I think that conversations you and I have had and some of the things you shared to help others are really, really powerful in terms of the evolution of your journey. So you got a diagnosis that helped put things into perspective in terms of like, what have I been experiencing my whole life? And
Mhm.
how does that contribute to what I am, where I'm at? I am specifically interested in because I think that there are a lot of people who probably get to this point where maybe they've had the diagnosis earlier, but the mental health piece comes in later, so there already is medication involved in the picture. Yours was sort of switched around the other way. um, so I'm really curious about that sort of combination of things and what that feels like and what the work has been like to figure that out.
So I really had to push. Like, I've always been the kind of person that just lays low and you can do whatever you want. You can hurt me, and I'm still going to probably apologize to you for you hurting me. But it's kind of changed when I really realized that I need to start standing up for myself. Like, I know myself best and I need to do what's best for me. So, my old family doctor actually retired and I got a new doctor. So I'm like, you know what? Let's try this again. Like, my mother in law actually went and got an ADHD diagnosis and gave me um, the name and everything for who she went to. Because at that point, she knew that I was looking into different mental health, just different, I don't even know the word you call it. Like, I want to call it disabilities, but like,
No, no,
you know what I
no.
mean? Like, just different mental health things. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized, like, oh my gosh, like ADHD is really resonating and it's really making a lot of sense. But even when I went to the nurse practitioner at my new doctor's office, she kind of kept saying, when she was asking me different questions, like she didn't think it was ADHD because it wasn't a physical. Like, I wasn't like super hyper as a kid. I wasn't bouncing off the walls the way people assume ADHD is. But when you look into what it actually can be, it's it can really change things. And that's what made me realize this is describing me to a T. So I kept pushing and I showed her, I'm like, here, like, this is, I would really like a referral to go talk to this doctor. She finally, like, she sent me home. I had to go find my, she wanted me to go find my own questionnaires online to answer to see if I did have ADHD and then bring them back. So I did that, and she finally referred me to the one that I suggested, and then a totally different hospital she referred me to. And I got both of them. And when I went to the ADHD specialist, even she was kind of not really listening to me at first, because when I told her, like, no, wasn't hyper kid. Like, I was a really quiet kid in school. I did everything I was supposed to. Like, she would ask, like, have you ever been suspended and all this different stuff? And I'm like, no, like, never. Like, I was a perfectionist, but it it started falling off. And that's when, the more I talked to her, the more she realized it wasn't the hyperactive like physical, it was my mind that's hyperactive. And that's when she realized, like, okay, I see what you're talking about. And that's when she finally gave me an actual diagnosis. And it's like I had to push for a good couple of months to get to that point. And even getting to that point again, it was another journey of, what do I do now? Like, what do I do with this information? And I still haven't done everything that's been suggested. Like, I haven't gone to therapy. I haven't talked to a counselor, nothing like that. I've just kind of done stuff myself. But it again was a whole journey of medication. Like, she showed me a whole book of medications and she's like, what do you want to try? And I'm like, I don't know. So, like, I went with a stimulant because I was scared. And I knew that when I was taking my Cipralex, it took a good few weeks for it to get out of my system, for me to stop feeling the way I was feeling. And I didn't want that. And she told me like the stimulant will be like, as soon as you stop taking it, it stops having an effect. So I'm like, okay, that kind of calmed me down. So that's when she put me on, it's called Faux Quest. And she told me that it was going to be more of a quieter effect. Like it wasn't going to be like, boom, right in my face, like massive change in my life. And I did notice the difference immediately. It was like my mind was a lot quieter. And I wasn't like it felt really, really different. Sorry. Oh my God.
What happened?
I tried to open my drink and it just like exploded all over the floor. My throat's really dry. Oh my God.
Uh,
But yeah, that
well,
was a whole nother journey of like going up in doses and like, do you think you need more? So we finally had that all figured out. And that took a good, I think, 3 months for me to get to where I am now. And now it's like the things that I thought were anxiety in the past, which it definitely still is anxiety, but it's not like it's ADHD that's causing the anxiety, because I was blown away when I got the medication all figured out and a lot of my anxiety symptoms were like gone. Like I was never a highway driver. I was terrified of the highway, which is a lot of the reason too why I was the way I was on the track, because my mind was just racing and I couldn't focus on what was actually happening around me. And all of a sudden I just started driving on the highway. And that's my
mm,
boyfriend said, like, this has made a massive difference because you have never once willingly got on the highway and just drove. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you're right.
that's a
Like,
powerful story, Meg, because I think there are a lot of people who believe they just can't or aren't that person. I want to relate it a little bit to your in-car racing experience because I know we talked a little bit about the difference and how it felt. And I want you to explain it as best you can for people from what it was. So, like all of the thoughts and how it sort of made it impossible to focus on the tasks, and like now how it feels being able to focus on the tasks.
mm. So I've said for years that my mind naturally is like an 8-lane highway. Like there's traffic going every which way, just flying. I can't focus. Like it's just insane. Like I can't focus on anything really. And it ends up creating an anxiety and a panic in me. And that's what was happening on the track. It's like there was so much going on around me that I couldn't focus on the task at hand. Like my mind would kind of start wandering and then I'd kind of glance in my mirror and see cars beside me and I'd panic and I'd drop right back and I'm like, I'm out, like I'm dropping to the back, I'm just going to ride around or I'm just going to get off the track. Like it never sent me into like a full blown what people assume is a going to happen every time, like a panic attack, like shutting down. It was just I can't focus. I don't really know what's going on. So then once I'm not going to lie, the specialist did tell me, like, I got talking to her about my racing and the way I feel in the car. And she told me, she's like, I'm not saying that it's a good thing to like medicate yourself to enhance your racing abilities, but I kind of think that this is actually going to enhance your racing.
Mhm.
Like, I think you're going to notice a difference. And that's when I was kind of like sold.
Yeah.
Like,
So where do I
let's
sign? Okay.
let's try this.
Yep.
So yeah, it has made a massive difference on the track. Even like um it's like now I'm able to go out and I can focus. I know what's happening. I'm in control of myself. I'm not doing the whole oh my God, but if I don't do this way, then this is going to happen. And I didn't do this before that. Like all those OCD kind of things that were triggering the anxiety, they didn't disappear, but it was a lot easier for me to reel it in and say, it's just a thought. It's
Mm.
not facts. It's a thought. Don't worry about it. And now when I'm on the track, it's like things slowed down. My mind has slowed down. I don't feel like an 8-lane highway in my head anymore. It still can feel crazy. It can still feel like rush hour at least, but it's
You
been a
are in a
lot
race
easier
car
for
after all with a bunch of other
yeah.
race cars. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
something going on there that's not like completely normal for your brain. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's actually easier for me now to just kind of calm down. And I didn't notice the big difference until opening night this year when we're coming to the green flag. And usually I'm like, okay, deep breath. Like I'm trying to keep myself calm and I'm almost borderline panicking. Opening night, I mean my GoPro caught it. It's like I'm in the car literally dancing and singing and like
Mm.
I'm just it's like everything
Enjoying
just felt
yourself.
natural again to
Yeah.
me and I was in control of what was happening and it just totally changed. Like she was right. Like I was able to just kind of focus on what I'm doing and not go into the whole overtime of like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like I still have those thoughts, but again, it's easier for me to just reel it in and say it's
To
just a
manage
thought.
them.
It's not a
Yeah.
fact. Like
Yeah.
I don't
And
need
there's
to entertain it.
so many people, like the racing thing is relevant because we're talking about it in terms of lift the visor and so on. But I know there's a lot of people out there in the world that are just, that's how it feels, like the 8-lane highway. I've never felt that, so I cannot relate. But I can imagine what that would feel like with the thoughts just constantly buzzing around and not being able to pick and choose what ones are important and what ones aren't, or be able to say like, beat it, thought, I don't need you right now. So
Yeah.
that's really powerful. I think the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap it up is your family and the role that they played in this. So I know family is really important to you. I've met your family, they're lovely. um, I think that there's a lot of people who feel alone on these journeys, and I was one of them. I didn't believe I could go talk to my parents, especially as a 36-year-old man going through something. I thought I was weak and all of these things.
Hmm.
um, and it ultimately, that was the step that helped propel me forward in a big way. Was breaking that barrier down that I thought was going to be the most difficult one, and it was the most important one to break down. So tell me about the role, like even if there were times that you felt, like they weren't supporting you fully or something, which I doubt. But just talk a little bit about your family influence in this whole journey.
Mm. So my siblings, like, they get it. They see the things that I've struggled with, and I can't say that they haven't helped me because, like, they help me, but I think they're kind of not hands off, but like they don't really know what to say to help. But they do. They both help in so many different ways outside of it. Like my brother is more of a has always been more of a harsh, like tough love kind of
Yeah.
ordeal. Like he makes jokes of it, but it's like he's trying to help. Whereas my sister's more of like a coddle me and like, do what's best for you and like stuff like that. Whereas my dad is kind of like my brother, where it's more of a tough love, but like he when push comes to shove, like he was the one that sat there and told me, I think you need to start taking your meds again. Like, have you taken your meds today? He would hand me the bottle, like, here, make sure you take it. He'd sit there and watch me take it. So he knew that I did. My mom, she was the one who initially kind of pushed for me to even get that ball rolling. Like, I mean, she tried to take me when I was
Hmm.
younger and they ended up trying to diagnose her instead because I wasn't having it. So it's like they're very supportive in their own ways and it's been really good. Like there's definitely still times where I do feel alone just because I'm like, I don't think they fully understand what I'm dealing with. Like, but I know that they all do deal with their own mental health things. It's just, it is in a different way. And they do the best that they can to help me. And it's like, I am really grateful that I have had them throughout this whole journey because they have helped a lot. And it is important to have somebody with you who does support you and does hear you out and understand. And that was even when I found Lift the Visor and I found you, it's like that was another big thing that came into my life because I'm like, oh my God, this is something that really resonates with me. Like it's mental health and it's racing. And then I got to know you and now I'm just like, I have probably the greatest support that I can have between my family and you and John and Jacqueline. Like it's been really good.
Yeah.
So it's
I
really
think it's
helpful.
I think it's, in your case and in my case, I wouldn't be here without my parents. Like I'm convinced of that. If I didn't have their support, I would not
Mm-hmm.
be here. Um, Not everybody has parents that they can go to,
No.
but friends like John and Jacqueline, um, anyone. There's so many resources now too that people can reach out and get like real help for the problems or the challenges that they're experiencing, not just generic help. And so I think that's a really important thing and something that I would encourage everyone who's struggling to think about doing if they're at a point of breaking where they just feel like they're so alone and they can't navigate it anymore on their own. Find an ally. I had another person who I never would have guessed would have been the person that stepped up and helped me. And I'm still so grateful for her to this day because I don't know without her if I would have been able to navigate it as well as I did, and name things that I was experiencing that she already knew about and was able to share her experience about. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great stuff, Meg. Is there anything else that you want to share before we call it a day?
Just on like that little note too, because I was just thinking that too when I was talking about my family, is that not everybody has that. And that's where I think things like Lift the Visor are really important because it does kind of open a door for people who might not have a support system like that, for them to kind of see that they're not alone, and it might help for others to reach out to somebody like us and just talk and share what they're going through. Like, I know I've had a couple people reach out because of it and share what they're going through because it's similar to what I'm going through and they don't have the same support that I have. And
Yep.
that's where I think it's really important to be doing things like this because it really can help. And I hope it just lets people know that like I am here for others. Like it can be really difficult and touchy because if you're struggling yourself, you can't be taking on other people's weight
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yep.
So that's important in knowing if they're in a good mind space to help you. I can't really help. I'm really good for just listening.
Mm-hmm.
And like I might share something that I've been through that's similar just because I don't know how to help, but like I can at least let you know that like I do acknowledge what you're feeling and I understand. So it's
Yeah.
like it is nice to have things like this just to give others the chance, like if they would like to reach out, to be able
Uh,
to
I couldn't sum up Lift the
their
Visor
own.
any
They do
better.
have a support system.
Yeah. That's what it is. It was
Yeah.
created to make people feel like there was someone else who they could talk to or was experiencing a similar thing. So we're not alone on this journey. My own experience was that I wished I had felt less alone. And that's what
Hmm.
Lift the Visor was created for, was to help people feel like, okay, someone else gets this. Um, Maybe I can talk to them about it because I don't have a friend or a family member that I think will grasp what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful.
Hmm.
Thanks, Meg, for doing this. Um,
Yeah.
the specifics about medication, and the specifics about your diagnosis of ADHD. I just think it's going to help a lot of people who have struggled and are struggling with things that they maybe don't even know are a thing that you can struggle with. And it might
Mhm.
help some of them navigate down a path. And as you said, we're all always here. Invisible John, our imaginary friend John, is here for people, and you're here for people, and I'm here for people. And there's a whole network of people who are supporting Lift the Visor, and even beyond that, that are here to listen
Mhm.
and be support for you. So thanks, Meg, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Audio Jungle.